Hi, it's Chantelle here from Fiberific. At Fiberific, we like to talk all things yarn craft related. Today, I want to talk to you about gauge swatching. Now, before you put your fingers in your ears and go la 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 la, I've got varying points of view on gauge swatches. I'd love to say, hey, this is the hard rule for gauge swatching. You must do it. But I don't. I don't do it. Why would I do it? I've got so much craft time in my life that sometimes I'll look at a gauge swatch and think, do I want to do this? Or do I just want to make the thing? Now, unfortunately, there are times when even I will make a gauge swatch. Now, these are times when size matters, when you want the jumper to fit, or you want the shirt to fit, or whatever you're making, you want it to fit a specific size and have set measurements. I'll gauge swatch then. But if it's something like a blanket or, a scarf, I'm not going to gauge swatch that, not unless I'm worried about running out of yarn. And I want to make sure that I'm getting the same gauge as the pattern designer so that I don't run out of yarn. That's it. Now, there are some people in the world, you know it's you if you're one of them, who walk around telling people, I get perfect gauge, I don't need to gauge swatch. Now, that's rubbish. Nobody gets perfect gauge to every designer out there because every designer's gauge is different. Now, there is having perfect tension and having even tension. So you can have two knitters or crocheters who've knit the exact same pattern, who've gotten their patterns, half an inch to 2 inches off, but their stitches are still perfectly uniform. That's perfect tension. That's not perfect gauge. It's different. They're totally different. If you don't have even gauge, your pattern's going to be lumpy and bumpy and it's not going to look right. The stitches aren't going to be uniform heights or uniform widths. And that's a whole nother thing. But if you're walking around telling people, I don't need to do a gauge swatch because I get perfect gauge, then you don't understand. And I'm not the yarn police around here, right? As of you who've watched plenty of my videos know, I don't know everything. Okay, but over the years, there are some things that I've learned. And as working for a stitcher for a few different designers, I know full well that different designers have different gauge and it's their gauge in the patterns. So if you know of a crocheter who is super loose, like me, when it comes to crochet, gosh people, super loose crocheter, then, and you yourself are a super tight crocheter, you know we're going to get different fabrics following the same instructions. I'm going to get a drapey fabric and you may get cardboard or something stiff and tight. Again, people, it's crochet we're talking about. So now I've lost my train of thought. Different people will have different tension. They will create different size stitches. And if they pull the yarn tight and snug on their needles, they will get a smaller stitch than those of us that don't pull on the yarn, or those that pull on it less. So we will have a looser tension. So it is important to understand the difference between getting gauge and having even tension. They are two totally different things. Now back to gauge, because I've got to get off this tension bandwagon. There are times when I will absolutely gauge, and there are different ways to gauge swatch. If you are working and doing a colour work beanie, and you're concerned about yarn weights or sizing specifically, if you're like me and your colour work is a little bit tight and you need to allow for this, you have to gauge swatch in the round. And I hate to say that because it's not the most fun thing in the world. If you're doing a big sweater, you can get away with gauge swatching it flat. You don't need to do that in the round. But you have to be aware there may be a difference because some people's purl is different to their knit. And if you're knitting in the round, you don't normally have to do as many purl stitches. So if you're gauge swatching and you're doing knit and purl and knit and purl, it's going to be different than if you did it in the round all in knit. Now that's not the case for everybody. Not everybody has slightly different tension on their knit and their purl, but it's fairly common. So you need to make sure you're doing that. Now the other thing to remember is if you've made a gauge swatch, and you can afford to keep it, because sometimes we run out of yarn and we have to retrieve it from somewhere. Gauge swatches are yarn safety nets. If you finish your project and you still have that gauge swatch at the end, you keep it. Don't ditch it. And whenever you wash your garment, wash your gauge swatch. Do you know why? If you ever have to repair that garment, you've got perfectly aged yarn to go with it. And it's not going to stand out like it's new yarn. Like, hello, there was a problem here and it's fixed, but there was a problem. Whereas if you use an aged yarn as well, it won't be as noticeable, okay? So these are my thoughts on gauge swatching. You may or may not agree with me, and that is totally fine. Pop your suggestions, comments down below. I want to read everybody's opinions because at the end of the day, this is my opinion. I'm not the knit police. I'm not the yarn police. I'm just giving you my opinion from over here in my little Australian corner of the world, over here at Fiberific, and it is just an opinion, okay? So if you agree with me, that's great. I love it when people agree with my opinions, don't you? But it's okay to not agree, and we can have a discussion about it. I will stand on my little high horse and be like, well, this is how I do it, but you can too, and it's totally fine. Anyway, that's it from me here today. If you like this video, click the like button. If you want to see more of my opinions or my, topical conversations, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any future uploads. Have a great day and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.